Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back from the break. Our next speaker is Maya Ackerman, who's going to be talking about machines that paint, compose music, and write poems. Maya is an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Engineering of Santa Clara University and was previously at San Jose State University. She specializes in artificial intelligence. She received her PhD from the University of Waterloo and was a postdoctoral fellow at Caltech and UC San Diego, followed by 2 years as an assistant professor at Florida State. Please welcome Maya.
Hello, it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm going to be talking to you about what I think is the most fascinating part of artificial intelligence. But before we get started, I wanted to share the first time that I discovered computational creativity. I was attending ITA, which is a workshop on information theory and applications. And I was specializing in theoretical foundations of cluster analysis at the time, a subfield of machine learning, having no idea that computational creativity even existed. So I'm attending this little series that's part of ITA. And Harold Cohen was talking about his automated painter named Aaron. So I discovered that Harold Cohen created something that makes art all by itself, not something that he used to make art. And Harold Cohen was standing there on the stage, having an argument with himself, essentially, saying that a lot of people were claiming that Aaron was proof that computers can be creative, but he was the only voice of reason saying that they can't be creative and that Aaron is not proof that computers can be creative. And I didn't care which side of the argument is right. I was just fascinated that somebody was having this argument at all. And I've completely fallen in love with this field since. I attended the ICCC, which is the International Conference on Computational Creativity, every year ever since, and completely redirected my research. And I hope that after today's talk, you guys will understand why I've chosen to change my whole life after I discovered this amazing field. So bear with me a little bit here with the clicker. Here we go. So what is computational creativity? Typically, we think of computers as tools, right? So tools that help us do things, perhaps like a super complicated wheel or a super complicated hammer, but definitely on that same spectrum, a tool. And yet, computational creativity looks at computers as things that create in their own right or that co-create with us. Perhaps in the same way as another human could be co-creative with us, right? Let's say if you're working with somebody else on a piece of art, visual art or music. So we can divide computational creativity into two main parts. The first is sometimes called co-creativity, or the title that I like a little bit less, which is weak CC, weak computational creativity. And the idea is that that's where computational creativity helps us humans be creative in a meaningful way, perhaps similar to how another human would be creative, or perhaps in some other way, right? Perhaps the biggest misconception with artificial intelligence in general, and with computational creativity in particular, is that AI is trying to create humans. It's not. It's trying to create intelligence in general. Or in case of CC, it's trying to create things that are creative, but not necessarily in the same way as humans. Often computers have very different strengths and weaknesses from us, and a direct comparison either leaves us feeling upset that we're not good enough all of a sudden, or it leaves us feeling that computers are just pointless and they're not good enough, and why are we even trying to go after AI? Right? So I think it's important to think of AI as something that can be fundamentally different from us, with different strengths. All right. Strong CC is this much more ambitious idea of a computer being an artist by itself, without any human interaction with it, which is what Aaron was, that very first talk that I mentioned where I met Harold Cohen. Is his system, Aaron, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, is autonomously creative. It creates art at a click of a button, just one button, and it makes all the art by itself. It's really amazing. One of the main challenges there is this notion of evaluation. One of the things that makes human artists artists is that they can not only create art, but they can also select from their own art. It's almost stereotypical to have an artist create an opera or a painting and then throw it in the garbage. This is horrible, right? Or on the other hand, to select that one aria or that one song or piece of art that they're really proud of. This ability to judge your own work is very important and is one of the main challenges in computational creativity, to have machines being able to evaluate what they create. All right, so how can we tell if we're making progress towards autonomous creativity or even co-creativity? Who here has heard of the Turing test? Almost everybody's heard of the Turing test. Fabulous. All right, so the Turing test is fundamentally for intelligence. All right, so let's just recap the Turing test. We have a very, very basic version of it. There is either a machine or a person hiding somewhere in a room, and then there is a person somewhere else only able to communicate with them through chat, and they're supposed to be able to tell through this conversation whether the thing that they're chatting with is a machine or a human, right? And if a human interrogator can be fooled by the AI often enough, then it's considered that it is passing the Turing test. Anyway, the Turing test has existed for a long time. There has been some success. There's been a lot of failures, and people are still trying to accomplish that. It's an interesting field in and of itself. But with computational creativity, the goal is a little bit different. And the goal is to create art that humans cannot tell if it was created by a human or by a computer. Okay? So my proposition right now is that we perform some Turing tests right now in this room. And you are going to be the judges. All right? Now, I'm going to show you some art in a moment. And the question is going to be, was this art created by a human or was it created by a computer? Now, what's important to emphasize is that when we're saying that it was created by a computer, that's in the strong computational creativity sense. It means that the computer did everything. Okay? Perhaps a human programmed the computer, but by the time that the art was being generated, the computer did everything. Okay, human or computer? We're going to see a whole bunch of pictures. All right, who thinks, by show of hands, that this was made by a human? All right, we're seeing a few hands going up. Nice and high. All right. We got about a quarter of people who think that this was made by a human, right? Now, who thinks this was made by a computer? All right, the computer is winning here. It is just winning so well. And I think not a lot of people abstained. I like that. All right, that was our first one. Now this one. Was this one made by a human? Who thinks human? Oh, the human is doing pretty well this time. Or computer? All right, the human won. Awesome. Human? All right, lots of humans. Or computer? This one was pretty even. It's hard to tell. Doesn't that tell you something by itself? That it's hard to tell with some of these pictures? That by itself is kind of an interesting thing to consider. Human. Lots of hands are going up for human or computer. Again, a little bit more for human this time. Wonderful. This is so fun. Okay. Especially if my clicker worked. Come on. All right, another picture. Human? A little bit of human answers. The longer I wait, all the hands are going to go up eventually. Or computer. Yeah, this one people like, that's a computer picture. Wonderful. Next one. Human? Lots of hands for human or computer. Awesome. I've had some students, when I show this, who like take, as if they're betting, they just vote with the minority. It's kind of fun. All right, this one, human? A few hands go up for human. Or computer. All right, some people have seen this before. Fabulous. We're going to take up the answers now, okay? Okay. So this is a picture made by Aaron. Remember I told you about Harold Cohen? I should mention that regrettably Harold Cohen passed away fairly recently. Early on, when he was building Aaron, when Harold Cohen was building Aaron, it was before it was easy to put things on a computer screen. He had this big robot with these arms putting paints on pieces of paper. Crazy. He was very committed to this idea of building an automated painter. And early on, he used to paint in. So originally, Aaron would just draw the outline, and Harold Cohen would color it in. But eventually, Aaron became more independent as the system developed. OK, so this one is made by Aaron, and I think everybody, like most people got it, that this is computer created. OK, this is human-made, and I think a lot of you got this as well. It's a piece of optical art by Bridget Riley from 1961. So it's kind of interesting how the moment a computer can do something, we have a tendency to say that that's not so creative anymore. It used to be considered amazing to be able to create perfect circles or perfect squares. And now that computers can do it, well, that's not so amazing anymore. That explains in part why this art is back from 1961. OK, this is actually modern pop art. I believe this one we got an even split. This was made by a human. So it kind of looks like it could have been made by a computer. This is human art by Thomas Fedro. This is another picture by Aaron, which many of us thought that it was made by a human. Because by that point, Aaron was taught to draw in a way that's intentionally human-like. The lines are intentionally imperfect, making it look as if it was drawn by maybe a talented kid. That's the vibe that I get from this picture. Now, this one is another computer image, and I think a lot of you realize that this picture was made by a computer, and it was created by an incredibly talented person called Simon Colton, who created a system that he calls the painting fool. So I told you in the beginning that Harold Cohen was having an argument on stage with himself about whether or not his system, Aaron, is creative, but his message was that it's not creative. How dare people suggest that Aaron was creative? It was so amazing to watch. But Simon Colton intentionally created the painting fool in an effort for the painting fool to eventually one day be taken seriously as an artist. And to some degree, this goal has already been accomplished. Works of the painting fool have been displayed in galleries. And incredibly enough, some of its work has also been commissioned for very impressive sums. So in a very real way, it is an artist. Another thing I should mention that's quite interesting is that some of the works of the painting fool are no longer trying to imitate humans. Simon Colton is intentionally working to create art that can only be made by a computer, such as images that repeat themselves into very, very small areas of the paper. You would have to zoom in, and yet you keep seeing the same pattern, something that would be nearly impossible to do for a human. This is another human picture. Again, we see rectangles, this kind of precision, which used to be valued. And this was done by C.O. van Dioberg. I think there was some ambiguity as far as voting on this picture as well. This is another picture by Aaron. Again, you see here the style kept evolving, becoming more and more realistic, and I believe also quite a bit more interesting. And this is Deep Dream. Who here has seen Deep Dream? OK, so Deep Dream is made by Google, and it was discovered by accident. It works through reverse image recognition. I'm going to tell you a little story now. When I was in university, I had this boyfriend. He was this tall Russian guy. And we broke up, and I was very sad. And everywhere I'd go, I would see him. Until one day, there was this short Asian woman that I thought was him from far away. And I'm thinking, Maya, this is not good. And I made that stop. So that's a reverse image recognition. I knew what I was looking for, and I would find it everywhere. And that's the same idea here. There's this picture of this dog that was given to the image recognition software. And it's going to find this dog, no matter what, over and over again. Kind of similar to hallucinations. I met somebody who was doing research in this area. There's a lot of connections between what deep dream does and human hallucinations. But fundamentally, Google reached this by accident, noticed that it looks cool, and ran with it. It's nice, right? All right, so that's deep dream. Again, what's nice about this example is it's a type of art that's in many ways easier for a computer to do than it would be for a human. And computer art, this is particularly works by the painting fool, have been displayed in galleries, and as I've already mentioned, have been commissioned for substantial sums. Okay, so we talked quite a bit about visual art and computational creativity. An area that's actually even closer to my heart is computational musicology, the creation of music using computers. And again, we have examples of autonomous systems and co-creative systems. And I can show you some examples of both. So this particular piece of music was created by David Cope, who is considered one of the fathers of computational musicology. He's a professor at UC Santa Cruz. And he was having writer's block. He was commissioned to create a piece of music, and he just couldn't. And so he decided, well, it shouldn't be too hard to have a computer help me out with this. And what was supposed to be a tiny little project to help him get out of writer's block ended up being a massive undertaking and something that he'd spent many, many years working on. So let me first show you this piece of music, which I consider to be one of the most impressive out there that were created autonomously by a computer system. At one point, David Cope came to a conference, and he said that he's discovered a new piece of music created by Bach. And he got the whole music community so excited. Wow, a new Bach, that's amazing. And he played one of the pieces created by Amy, experiments in musical simulations. And people were amazed, and they loved that piece of music. And it was this whole big deal. Well, then, being an honest person, he eventually admitted that actually this is created by his system. And you would think that they would be excited about this, but no, they got really mad. This was not okay. So things have come a long way since then. And while there is still some resistance, I think that there is also a lot of excitement nowadays about the possibility of computers doing creative things. So this is one direction. The way that it works, for those of you who are curious kind of to look behind the curtain, how does somebody achieve something like this? The way that Amy works is by breaking down works of composers into tiny little chunks, little tiny musical motifs. And what David Cope did is he fed in algorithms, expert systems, that would explain how to recombine that music into new works of art. That make sense? Chop it up into little tiny pieces and then give rules that explain how to recombine it. And this whole idea of expert systems, I should mention also that Harold Cohen's Aaron is also an expert system. So both David Cope and Harold Cohen were artists in their domain, artists and a musician, respectively. And so they knew how to get the computer to do what it did And so they fed in the rules. Okay? This is how things used to be done. And it can achieve really amazing things. But this is not really how things are done nowadays. So I'll talk to you a little bit more later about how machine learning is applied to this. Essentially allowing people who are not artists, who don't know how to do this, to create machines that can be artists. It's pretty crazy. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you this other video here, which is very slow to get started. Could you help me navigate the mouse here, please? I want to show it to you because it's another absolutely fascinating domain which has to do with musical improvisation. Right? Having a computer. Yeah, so if we, actually, here we go. Okay, it's going, thank you. It's just very, very slow to get started, but it's worth waiting for. Improvising along with a human. This is all done in real time. This whole notion of computer improvisation is becoming bigger. And while I might not have access to a whole piano that you could experiment with, those of you who would like to experiment with this type of systems can look up improvisor online. One of my colleagues made this system, impro-visor. You can download a system, and then you can play on various instruments. It can hear you and improvise with you. It is amazing. After he gave a talk, his name is Bob. He works in Southern California. I actually came up to him after the talk and played around with his system for about an hour. It was so much fun. Okay, but this is work by Andrew Brand. Okay. So I've talked to you for a long time about what other people do. I did want to spend a little bit of time telling you about my work. I've done a few different things in computational creativity since I discovered it. But by far my favorite has been a system that we created named Elysia. Let me give you a little bit more background. So I think I've already mentioned my kind of main part of my life, which is being a computer science professor. But around the middle of my PhD, I started taking voice lessons. I wasn't taking it very seriously at first. I was simply jealous that my husband was taking voice lessons. And I thought, I also want to take voice lessons. And so I did, and I got really, really hooked. This is really, I don't know any of you who maybe also do very, very different things, maybe music and computer science. I can feel different parts of my brain being activated when I do these different activities. I really, really fell in love with singing, opera in particular. And within about 9 months, became a semi-professional opera singer, which was very disorienting because I sort of ended up with a double life. I was becoming a professor, did some postdocs first, and then the singing didn't really fit in anywhere. Until, of course, I discovered computational creativity, which I realized can solve one of the biggest problems that I was having as an artist. I tried for many years as a musician to write original songs because, as you might guess, you can't go very far singing other people's music. It's a lot more complicated in the music world to use other people's stuff, unlike computer science where we share everything online, open source. And so I tried writing my own music, but it was terrible, and so I didn't want to show it to anybody. Then once I realized computational creativity exists and this whole notion that you could have a computer be a legitimate creative partner, I thought, well, maybe I can build a system that can compose songs for me. I could write lyrics, okay, so I could give it lyrics, and it could give me melodies for these lyrics. And within about 3 months, we had a prototype. And suddenly, I could write songs together with Elysia. And it got out of control very quickly. We published an arXiv, a very short arXiv paper about it. And then New Scientist got in touch with me and NBC News, and all these articles went up. And suddenly, people were emailing me, can I try using your Elysia? I'm like, well, not really. It's sitting on my computer here privately. And so we eventually rolled it out and made it accessible to other people. So I wanted to show you today some of the music that we created with it. I might interject and talk a little bit about how it works if you're interested. So this is kind of, we set up a basic interface for it right now, where you basically type in lyrics, and it gives you many different options for how you could sing those lyrics. So it says here, I took my power in my hands, and it would give you different options, like, I took my power in my hands, or I took my power in my hands. Many different options. It's helping you explore the creative space. Remember how I mentioned that computers have different strengths in us? Well, they're much better than humans at exploring options. They're not as good as humans, at least not yet, at evaluating. So the role of the human here is to listen and figure out which pieces they want to use. Then you can type in your next sentence and keep building your song that way. Within about 2 minutes, most people can create a short little song. I'll show you some of the stuff we made with it, including some stuff that took more than a couple of minutes. All right, so I'm going to sing you a song. You know, it's not very effective to tell people that you studied opera. It's much more effective to show that. But maybe I'll grab a bit of water before that. Okay. And we're doing okay on time. Okay, so we took an Emily Dickinson poem. You guys heard of Emily Dickinson? She's amazing, you know. Wrote little poems and little scraps of papers hidden all over her house. Really beautiful stuff. So we fed in her poetry into Elysia and created this song, which subsequently one of my students produced the background track for it that you're about to hear.
Sweetness in the gale is heard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really moments like this that remind me how much of this work is driven by the artist in me. My very first reactions to Elysia had very little to do with the fact that it's an amazing piece of tech. I was excited that it's giving me the chance to sing and to finally, for the first time in my life, to sing original music. So thank you for sharing this moment with me. I should mention a little bit about how it works. So one of the most amazing things about it is it was created by non-composers. So we have currently three main people on it. There is me, David Locher, and Christopher Cassion. And none of us are composers, though we've gotten a lot of advice from musicians over the past couple of years in perfecting Elysia. But basically, you give it a lot of data. You give it songs. And you tell the system what kind of things it should be paying attention to. So perhaps the notes that came before the one that it's trying to generate right now. Or how important are the different words that it's creating melodies for. And then it figures out by itself what it should do to compose good music. And so it's using machine learning for generation, which is sort of the newer, more exciting part. You guys probably know applications of machine learning, like predicting whether a stock is going to go up or down, right? Give it information, it says yay or nay. Here it's kind of similar. You give it lyrics, in this case, and a whole bunch of music that it learned from, and it's trying to predict the next note. And we just agree with it. That's sort of the basic explanation. We say, OK, you predict it's going to be a full note on a C sharp. OK, good job, Elysia. Now how about the next one? And that's how it generates. All right, so in a way, prediction and generation are very tightly linked. However, how you evaluate it is a lot more complicated, because something like stocks, we just want accuracy. But with music, if it always generated the same thing, that wouldn't be very good. That's where a lot of the complexity comes in with generative systems. So I'm going to skip through the next slide here, which was there in case I didn't want to sing. I'm going to show you maybe the first few seconds of a pop song that we created with Elysia, working together with Dusty Maraglia, who is a producer. Wonderful, wonderful producer. We've been working together quite a bit to sort of show you the diversity of the system, that it doesn't have to all be classical music. We can do the music that hopefully sounds like it could one day be on the radio, or at least in that general direction. That's our website.
You're all I need, the breath I breathe. Trust our love enough, believe in us. Craziness, you'll make me this, and for you makes me sick. Wanna know you so adore, you can't afford to take this hit. And I admit the things you play me, might have paid me quite a bit, but not enough to give you up.
Yeah, so the whole song is on our website. You're welcome to listen to it. We had so much fun making it. We're actually working on a second song right now with Dusty, where the lyrics are also computer generated. So we have another system. We originally called it Mabel, but it's going to get merged with Elysia very soon, that helps people come up with lyrics. Because by making Elysia, I learned that a lot of people struggle with different parts of creating songs, and lyrics writing can be one of those parts for a lot of people. So we're going to put up a system for that as well. All right, I'm going to show you one more thing. This is a piece of music that was made with Elysia by somebody who has absolutely no musical experience. My colleague, one of my favorite colleagues, James Morgan, he's a professor in the arts department at San Jose State University. And he's a conceptual artist. If you guys don't know what conceptual art is, look into it. It's mind-blowing. So he wanted to create an opera, okay? So we created an Italian aria. Was made by a person who doesn't speak Italian, by the way, but also is not a musician. And we made what I think is a really stunning Italian aria. We also created a beautiful video with it using machinima. So the opera is set in the world of Warcraft. And the main character, her name is Dahlia, and she's a torrent. And she's having a problem because she loves going out on raids and, fighting the bad guys. But she also has a family. She has a baby torrent at home. And so there is this tension between her home life and her life outside the house. So this first aria is starting to hint at that. for questions. So Elysia is online right now, sort of an early version of it to give people a sense of what it's about, to help musicians create music. It's on tryelysia.com. We recently had a contest, so quite a few people submitted really, really awesome songs that they made with Elysia. But over the past few days, we had the idea of creating a consumer product. So something that would make it possible for literally anybody to create original songs. So if any of you are interested in this, please let me know. You can try our system, but I'd also be really curious to talk to people about what kind of product they would have fun using that has to do with creating their own original songs. So if anybody's interested, please let me know. We can stay in touch and chat about it. All right, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.